Hello and good morning. I thought I would do a little update video. Um, the big tank over there has been smelling like a swimming pool. I didn't know I had chlorine in my water, but it seems that I do because that big tank was smelling like a swimming pool for a couple of days. And it has subsided. But I'll get to that a little more in a minute. I said that um, this lucky bamboo looks like variegated bamboo. That this would be going in that other tank to get the plants going in that tank. And I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the other video again yet, mostly because I don't want to compare video to in person. I thought it would probably be a little more accurate to compare video to video. Kind of like my viewing of this video is probably different than your viewing of the video, depending on the capabilities of the device you're watching it on. Now, I'm not going to make any judgments on how good or bad your viewing device is. I mean, it could be a computer, it could be a laptop, it could be a phone. I don't know. I don't know how good of the quality is of your laptop or computer or whatever it is you're using. And it's kind of the same thing. I don't want to compare what my eyes see and then look at a video. I'll just make another video, and that way I can compare video to video rather than life to video. I think the comparison will be more accurate that way. So here's how it's doing now. And I'll probably put it in a playlist linked up to the other video with this plant in it. Although I don't think I, tried to focus on the leaves so well. But from memory, I think this plant is doing better. I think the green is filling into the white areas, which are looking more yellow than white now. On the video, they're still looking kind of whitey to me. I don't know. So there's that. That's a good look at that. It's in this tank. For one, it's recovering. And for the recovery, I wanted it to have, some good water. And despite what I'd watched on a fish video the other day, they were talking about not marine plants, but aquatic plants. We'll say the plants that grow in the fish tank under the water. He was saying they prefer ammonia, but can switch to nitrates. Probably using nitrites in the middle is, okay, well, if I can't have my ammonia, at least I can have nitrites. And then, another step down to nitrates if that's all they can get. That's all they can get. But I wonder if it could go the other way, kind of, a pre-chewed food, so to speak. Um, a lot of birds do it. They'll eat the food and then regurgitate, and it's kind of partially digested a little bit because it's been in the crop. I believe they bring it up from the crop. It doesn't go to the stomach, or the crop is the stomach. I don't know. I kind of understand bird, yeah, but not real well, I guess. Is the crop the stomach, or is it a pre-thing to the stomach? Kind of like cows have a four-chambered stomach. Anyway, um, birds bring it up, and sometimes there's a little bit of digestion that went on there. I think I'm not a bird expert. I'm not much of an expert on anything, really. um, so yeah, I wanted it to have good quality water. This tank is being fed, which I guess there's a distinction to be made there too. If I say I'm feeding the fish, that's what I'm doing. I'm feeding the fish. Does the tank indirectly benefit from fish food? I'm sure it does. But when I say I'm feeding the fish, I'm, feeding the fish for the fish's benefit. Whatever the tank gets out of fish food, the tank gets out of fish food. Now, when I'm putting the salt into the tank, I talk about feeding the tank. And that's what I'm doing. I'm feeding the water in the tank. The benefit is for the fish. The fish get something out of the salt. I'm sure they do. And the plants. Because the tank itself is just a glass box. But when I say I'm feeding the tank, that's what I'm doing, is benefiting the water, the plants. And now the fish isn't indirect. So see, there's kind of a difference there. If I'm feeding the fish, I'm feeding the little fish mouths. Going directly into the fish, and the tank gets what it gets. If I'm feeding the tank, I'm dissolving the salt so that the fish don't eat it, and it's going into the tank, keeping the water good, the plants, the fish are getting what they get, but I'm feeding the tank, not so much the fish. Both feeding, basically everything benefits from both feedings, but I'm making that distinction. So if I'm feeding the fish, I'm feeding the fish. If I'm feeding the tank, I'm feeding the tank. And this tank has been getting fed for, its entire existence. 1/4 teaspoon, I believe it is. It's 1/4 of a teaspoon of the marine aquarium salt. I believe it's Instant Ocean. I've put the bucket away. I've gone from a messy person to a reasonably clean person. So the bucket's put away, but I'm pretty sure it's Instant Ocean. You would think I would know. After looking at the bucket for years now, you'd think I would know. So this tank gets fed. And of course the fish get fed. The fish get fed every day, the tank gets fed monthly. But I wanted it over here to recover because this is its best chance. The tank is, seasoned and cycled and all that. So it's over here with the fish for now. And I think it's doing better. And like I say, over here at the big tank, I guess I'll call it, it has been, I know that looks like a pill bottle, but it's a bottle of pellet fish food. At least it is now. It was a prescription that I think it's my pill bottle. It's my pill bottle. Come on. But this tank, I was just gonna fill it up and let the ammonia in the tap water cycle for me. Because I've got that. I don't need to add it if it's already in the tap water in decent amounts. But I was noticing after filling it up, a couple hours after filling it up, it's starting to smell like a swimming pool in here. And it kind of got stronger and stronger as the day went on. And for a couple of days, at least a day, it was smelling like a swimming pool. And I thought, okay, I didn't know there was chlorine in the water, but there does appear to be. And in copious amounts. So I thought, well, okay, I don't understand what's going on here. I went from believing that our source water had no chlorine to smelling, like I say, it was strong. A swimming pool's not much of an exaggeration. So I thought, well, is it shock water? Did I happen to fill up my tank on a day that they were shocking the water supply? Now, I don't know if the water board calls it shocking the system. But when I had a pool, that's what I would do when a kid or an adult, there's a story there that I'm not going to tell, but when a person was too lazy to get out of the pool, I would refer to it, if I was talking to somebody, as I need to shock the pool again. Basically telling my roommate that they need to talk, or I've caught them. I really don't know who was doing this. I didn't care. The rule was, if you need to go to the bathroom, you get your butt out, you go in the house, and you go to the bathroom. But people were breaking that rule, thinking I would never know. And it was the adults that appeared to be shocked that I was realizing. And like I say, there was at least one adult. This is basically how they found out. They said, I don't want my kids to be punished for something that I did. They admitted to my roommate that they thought they could get away with it because how would I know? And surprise, surprise, I know because I caught him. How did I catch them? I never told them. Never told them. Basically because I wanted to be able to catch them. It turned out, I learned this through the pool, that ammonia and chlorine don't get along. They cancel each other out. So, if one day I had a bunch of chlorine in the pool and I didn't like to bring it up to levels where it smelled like the public pool, I like to just put in one. I could barely smell it. If I could barely smell it, that was enough. And when I couldn't smell it anymore, I would test. If it was completely gone, And I would wonder, but I would put in another one, and I would try to get it to the point where I could just barely smell it. That was my main gauge. I wanted to barely smell it. So when I didn't smell it and I tested, I expected the chlorine levels to be there, but be low. If they weren't there at all, I would go get my ammonia kit for the fish tanks, and I would test for ammonia. If there was suddenly a high concentration of ammonia, well, I knew what happened. And actually, people produce ammonium. Well, fish produce ammonia, but that's what it is. So anyway, I was smelling the ammonia in the aquarium here, and I thought, well, if it's smelling of ammonia like that, or chlorine, now I'm misspeaking. If it's smelling of chlorine like that, I already know from the swimming pool scenario that if it's smelling like chlorine, like there's no ammonia. So if there's no ammonia, what is going to start the cycle? That's where the fish pellets come in. I started feeding the tank fish food, which is kind of weird because if I'm feeding fish food, I'm feeding the fish. Well, not in this case because there's no fish in here yet. I need it to break down and give me ammonia so that I can start the cycle. There's about 2 days there that were being wasted because I was smelling ammonia. And I know, like the butterfly story, that makes me wonder if those bubbles aren't too much. My swimming pool scenario tells me that there is unlikely to be, well, there is now, maybe. I'm going to come up here and give it a smell. Hold the phone over the glass so I don't drop it in the tank. Yep, it's starting to smell like a clean fish tank now. So most of the chlorine is gone. I'm going to feed the tank fish food and get the cycle going. I basically lost at least a day because I wasn't expecting chlorine. But it seems that they had to either shock the system, put extra chlorine in to clean the system, because maybe there is chlorine and my tests just weren't detecting it. But by cleaning out the system, they put in so much that I can smell it. And, basically shocking the system. Because one or the other can win. In equal amounts, they cancel each other out. But if you get, one stronger than the other, then it'll dominate. If you put in 5 chlorine tablets, then you're going to break down the ammonia and destroy the ammonia. But you're not going to be able to keep fish in there if there's that level of chlorine. And if there's, just a little bit of chlorine, but you got a high volume of ammonia, it'll destroy the chlorine for you. But you still can't keep fish in it because now you got too much ammonia in there. But I think I've got the ammonia out. I don't think the fish food going in really did it. I think it just precipitated out at the top after a day or so. But now I can start the cycle. Or at least the cycle will start soon. Because what I'm doing is just slightly feeding the tank 1 pellet a day. And these pellets have expired. They're no good for fish. I give them a whiff and they've expired. But they should work for feeding the tank and getting the ammonia source going. The other thing that tells me that, there was probably chlorine, that Christmas cactus head, it looks like a Christmas cactus island statue head top to me. It was green with algae. Just green, because I had stopped the tank and let it sit for a while. I was going to empty it down, and then it didn't happen. So algae grew on everything unchecked. So that was green. Now you can see, I don't know if you see the green color or not, but you see all those little white specks coming through, except for the one on his lip. When I transferred everything over here, I just kind of filled the bucket with that big gravel, and all the decorations just kind of went into a bucket. Sorry about that window glare. I guess I could do that. And all these decorations just went into a bucket. Well, the gravel went in last, and it trickled down over everything. Well, it seems to be the only damage, but I think I give him a fat lip. Or in this case, a skinny lip. I took a chunk out of his lip. I assume it was either dumping the gravel in or pulling him out of the gravel. Like I say, this is large gravel, and there's a point to it for the breeding tank. I'm wanting to breed. Let's do this. Up against the glass. That's large gravel, though. And it's got a point. I'm not gonna... We'll get to it. We will get to it. But I gotta cycle this tank. I'm not in a big rush. We need to cycle the tank. So other than that white lip, where the other white is coming through, some of it is because I just poured the water on top of his head to kind of do the same thing I did over here. The bridge was all green, and I dumped the water on top of the bridge, and it just washed the algae off the top of the bridge, which without chlorine it doesn't typically do. The bridge itself, this works pretty good for this scenario. The bridge itself, most of the algae has died off. So the bridge is, in the film, it's actually looking new. And there's a little bit on the glass there that I did scrub the glass, but some stayed behind. The idea wasn't to do a perfect job. That was never the idea. But a lot of it died off there, too. I'm sure it was the chlorine that I've been smelling. Has just... anything that was alive has been killed. There's some green, like I say. When he was new, he was basically white. All that dark color is the algae that didn't get washed off of him. But is it alive or dead? I think it's a combination of both. I think some of it might have held on, but a lot of it's dead. Would ammonia, high levels of ammonia, kill algae? I guess maybe. But that's, another sign that I had a chlorine spike. Well, I didn't put any fish in there. I wanted the tank to cycle for a while. Make sure it's ready for fish. So all the fish stayed safely over here. And there's no reason for them to move because I haven't got a breeding cage over there yet. And until the water is ready, there's no point. I'll just kill the fish. So they're staying over here just waiting for the cycle to happen. Which kind of makes me wonder, with all that chlorine, if I would have dumped a bottle of pre-made bacteria, for lack of a better term, if I would have just dumped some bacteria in there and waited for it to take effect, what are the chances that I would think that the bottle didn't work? Probably pretty low because I could smell the chlorine. But let's say you don't smell the chlorine. It's there, there's enough of it to do damage, but you don't smell it. So maybe you're not thinking about it because you're either new or you test and let's say the chlorine is there, but it's not enough to register on your test. Or maybe the expired, I don't know about that. But maybe your test went off. I doubt it, but maybe your test went off. So it doesn't register the chlorine. And you put your bottle of instant bacteria in there, and the chlorine kills it. It was alive, it was going to do fine, but the chlorine killed it. And here you are blaming the manufacturer for making a product that doesn't work, when in reality it would have worked, but you killed it. Not intentionally, of course, you don't even realize it was you, but by not first eliminating the chlorine, you killed it. And it's not their fault, it's yours, because you didn't make sure there was no chlorine in the tank before you dumped it in. Just little points I'm putting out while I'm cycling. As they come to mind, I'll shoot a video to put them out there for people, thinking that they want to come into fish. And if they want to grow orchids, full water culture. There's another one. I almost forgot something I wanted in this video. Man, my videos got long. Just because I can make them longer doesn't necessarily mean I should. But they've gotten longer. Remember when I said that it's not that one, it's this one. Kind of the binocular effect. You think you're looking at one tree off in the distance. Turns out you're looking at another one. This one is in full water culture every way you can imagine, because it's got these long roots that come down and try to follow them all the way down. There they go. They past this other one that I thought looked funny for the one I was looking at, and they go down into the tank. Well, there was that switcheroo thing that happened. But you can see that root. You know what? This might get noisy, but it's going to let the water settle down. There. That root that comes out at an angle there, doing the best I can to deal with the reflection. And so that's the problem with filming fish tanks. You deal with one reflection and you get another. There, I guess that, but there's still. Anyway, you can see that root comes down, and right where it makes that 90-degree angle, close enough to a 90-degree angle, that has all grown underwater. So I thought, well, I think that's technically branching. It's doing good. So I put the other one back there in 24/7. It's the one in the back. It has been doing well. It looks like it might be growing a new tip. You know, that colored tip may be coming back. But it has done well and hasn't started rotting. I'm looking up where it stops being dark green. See, it kind of stops being dark green. Not sure what's going on there. The other one doesn't seem to be doing it. Anyway, it doesn't seem to be rotting in the water. There might be something going on at basically the water line where it goes from being hydrated to less so. But it's not rotting, or I don't think it's rotting. So I went ahead and I put the third one that reaches the water. Just the other day I put that in. So there is no more roots going in and out. All three that reach the water are in the water. And it's not dehydrating. I see no dehydration, or very little. It hasn't moved. It was mounted there, I guess, on the lucky bamboo. And I've never taken it down to bring the roots into the water any more than they can reach on their own. It seems to be doing well. It's got this root with a bad tip. It's got that little root that doesn't appear to have a bad tip. It's got a couple more roots over here. One with a bad tip, one not so much. And something else is going on. But the new orchid is in the way. We're about to discover something together, not forgotten, but I just discovered it. So we're going to discover it together, rather literally. Right by that root, right by this one, doesn't look like you can see it yet on the camera. I'm going to try to move this root, let it do that. I can't decide I don't think you can see it. I think it's still too small. And I can't decide if that's a root or a spike starting. I'm going to call it a root. I'm going to call it a root. It might change and become a spike. I don't know. But I think I'm going to call it a root. Trying to get it so that you can see it, but I don't think it's big enough. We'll just have to keep an eye on it and see what it decides to be. I guess it could be a spike, but I think it's far enough down that it's more likely a root. So we'll say it's a root. And if it turns into a spike, well, we got to be happy. We don't mind roots. It could always use more roots. But if it decides to be a spike, then we can just be all the happier, right? Okay, I think I've got everything covered. The video is getting long. We'll start the flow again, just so you know that it got started again. Oh, come on. There we go. This filter can actually prime itself. Look at that. It's a beautiful thing. Now, I could have primed it if it needed it, because I intentionally stopped it, so I could have primed it if it didn't start itself. But when the power goes out and comes back, I can be sure, reasonably sure, that this filter can prime itself. The same with that big one over there on the other tank. It does a good job too. I don't remember what either one of them are. That one's a hybrid. It had a completely broken... Here, we'll do it again. Impeller. Gives me an excuse to look at this impeller. But there it is. That fan there, if you don't know, it had all but 3 teeth, and it still has all but 3 teeth broken. But before, it had broke, and it didn't work at all. And this is the same kind of one. You can't remove that fan from the lift tube. Some you can. That one over there, the big, I guess we'll go over there and look at it. This is fine. It works perfectly fine. And it's going to start. So we'll come over here. See, that's the confidence I have. I'm not even going to make sure it starts this time. I know it's going to start. Move the fish food because we don't need it. And we'll bring this gently over. Now this one, it used to have a different lift tube. The algae creep is terrible, isn't it? It used to have a different lift tube where you could take the impeller off, but now you can't, and you can see the difference. Yes, that's nasty algae in there, but where it goes clear, that's the original lift tube. And it came up, and it went over in a square, and it had a little valve here that you could play with. Silly. Not needed. Doesn't even have it on this one. But this black is from a different brand. The black part of the tubing. And you can't take the impeller off of this one. And the old one was broken to the point where it didn't work. And this one, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's got 3 teeth on this side and none on this side. Still works, but it's missing half of its teeth. So, I guess if there's anything to be taken, it can work with just... Get in there. Come on. There it goes. It can work, and it can prime itself. Gotta give it a minute. It's only got 3 teeth. But it can. There it goes. Sorta. There. Doesn't have a sponge on this side. Can you figure out where it went? Yep, it's over there. That's why it's missing. This side, it does. Boy, that's so creepy. Got the sponge on this side, but as I've already said, this fry eater, because it would just, any fry that got close enough to that lift tube would just get sucked in. Now, sometimes fry can get sucked in, survive, and in this case, get dumped back into the tank through the missing sponge. But it could also kill them. And I know people that have had them get sucked, and they end up with like 3 or 4 fry back there. And they just make it through, and I don't know. I don't want my fry taking that trip into the vacuum. Put that back over. And realize that it actually makes the filter noisier. I don't think it's seated in there quite right. But I'll play with it after the fact. So, there's all the little tips that I've got for you today. It all started because I wanted to compare that. And we end up with a 40-minute video. Holy smokes, 40 minutes. I think it's time to cut it off and talk to you next time.